Hi, I'm Bob Spinozzi. On today's edition of Small Town, we're going to feature Indian Hill Music on King Street. Indian Hill Music is, in fact, a rare combination of a community music school and at the same time a professional orchestra that performs mainly in Littleton but in other communities as well. I am so pleased and quite frankly honored to have with me today Bruce Hangen, the music director of the Orchestra of Indian Hill. Bruce also serves as director of the orchestral activities at the Boston Conservatory and is conductor of its orchestra. Bruce also has been guest conductor with the New York Philharmonic, the Boston Pops, and many other leading orchestras in the country and really in the world. And Bruce, thank you so much for spending this time with me here today.
Great to be here.
I know that in December you were conducting in Florida.
Yep.
Going anywhere this year so far?
Well, so far this year, no, actually. The year's still pretty young. But I'm actually going back to Naples again, Naples, Florida, in May. And right now, these first few months of the year, I'm so busy at the conservatory, there really isn't any time to get away. I had about 2 weeks the beginning of January, and I actually chose to just take those as downtime because the fall season had been really very active for me. So I'm looking forward to going back to Florida in May, and that'll be a lot of fun.
And of course you had the Christmas concert here in town, and then you also had the January 28th concert that I went to.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was a lot of fun.
And how did you like that?
Well, very much so.
Great, great. Yeah, the orchestra's playing very well, don't you think?
Oh,
yeah,
very much so.
They really are. Yeah, it's been a good year, and we do, as you know, a regular series of 4 concerts as our subscription series with the orchestra, and then add to that. And you talked about the Christmas program. Yet that was a lot of fun too, because that's the first time we really did a Christmas program, which was a mixture of a symphony plus handbell ringers and everything else. We had so much fun.
I was reading the program the other day, yesterday actually, when I was trying to prep for the show. And there was a song on there, Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring.
Yes, right.
That I remember singing in the choir many decades ago.
Well, you see, I really think that the Christmas season, musically speaking, is all about traditions. Well, Christmas itself is all about tradition. And so those kinds of songs, whether it's Deck the Halls or it's Jesu Bambino or whatever, there's a certain amount of repertoire that you have to do on a Christmas program. And I always like to make sure that we have a good portion, half anyway, if maybe not 3/4 of the material, is all that Christmas material that you really want to hear. And then maybe I dress it up a little bit with different arrangements and stuff.
And they're of course timeless. You can play them and hear them and sing them and listen to them over and over and over again.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's great repertoire, that's for sure.
Let's talk about the school a little bit.
Yeah.
In the Indian Hill, I was looking at a newsletter from last spring, and there was a quote that really jumped out at me from Susan. Susan Randazzo, who's the executive director over at Indian Hill. And it went like this. Our organization was founded to provide excellence in both music education and performance for everyone in our communities. Our performers, teachers, students, audiences, board of directors, volunteers, and staff are united by our passion for music and this mission. Very succinct.
Definitely succinct, and I think pretty powerful.
A team effort.
Absolutely a team effort. That's what we're really all about. I think the one thing that's important for everybody to understand, those people who don't know anything about Indian Hill music, is that yes, we have, what, 1,300 students or something like that right now, of all ages. And we've done everything from early childhood classes to certainly adult music lessons and ensembles and things like that. So there's a lot of people coming through our doors on a weekly basis. We have also that means we have to have a lot of faculty in order to teach those people. And we've got, I think, close to 70 full-time, or I don't want to say full-time, but 70 faculty members who are all professionals. Some of them teach in in other institutions as well. Some teach only exclusively at Indian Hill Music. And then the dual mission that Susan's statement talks about is the whole orchestra itself. And that is, see, a lot of people think that, isn't it great that the Indian Hill Music has enough students to have an orchestra? This is completely different. It's a dual mission where we have our school and we also have the symphony orchestra, which is a fully professional ensemble, and maybe a few of our players, I would say a handful of our players, also happen to teach at Indian Hill Music. But it's not a student orchestra by any means, so it's a real treasure. Anyway, the school is a very active place. You've been in the building. You know what it's like when you walk in those front doors. You just see the activity. You can hear the music.
Well, you can feel the electricity is what you can do.
Definitely, yeah.
And we did, not to interrupt you, but we did briefly go upstairs and went into some of the classrooms and observed some of the classes that were going on with the students.
Exactly, and to hear in all the individual studios the violin lesson going on, and next door to that might be an oboe lesson, and next to that might be a piano lesson, and next to that might be a vocal lesson. It's truly amazing, and especially in the after school hours when the students are all free to come for their lessons, it becomes a real bustling center of music, and it's terrific to see.
Now you're into your 10th year?
Yes, so my 10th year as the director of the orchestra.
How'd you find out about it, or were you recruited? Or?
Well, it's actually fairly interesting. It was 11 years ago that I received a call from Susan Randazzo saying that they had, the previous music director of the orchestra had resigned quickly in a last-minute decision from the orchestra. And so they found themselves in the lurch looking for a music director for a concert that was, I think, only 2 weeks hence or 3 weeks hence. And Susan Randazzo had called me because she used to play cello in the Portland, Maine Symphony when I was music director up there 10 years earlier, before this time. And she had called some friends of mine at the Boston Pops to say, hey, we have a need for a conductor. Do you have anybody you can recommend? And the folks at the Boston Pops said, well, what about Bruce? What about Bruce Hangen? She said, Bruce Hangen? Well, he was my conductor in Portland, Maine when I was a player. So she gave me a call, and wouldn't you know, I was living in the Midwest at this point, and I just happened to be available that week. So I said, sure, I'll come on out. Great to see you again and all that. Came out, did the concert, and then right after the concert, we started having these conversations like, well, Bruce, do you think you'd be interested in the job? Because I think we have an opening for the job full time. And well, you know, I was looking around at that point. I was just finishing up about 12 years of time with the Omaha Symphony and was hoping to find a way to get back to the East Coast. So I said, well, let's keep talking about it. And so, make a long story short, the rest is history. That's making it very short. By simply saying I accept that they offered the job and I accepted, and even though they had a search and they checked out resumes from close to 200 other people who really had expressed some interest in this position, and they asked me to do it, and now it's been 10 years and having a great time. And it's both the orchestra and the music school, the whole institution. Is definitely this team effort, and more so than I've seen anywhere with any other orchestra, certainly a performing arts organization. There's a real camaraderie, there's a real sense of a combined sense of mission and a unified sense of mission that we all have, that everybody wants to do the right possible thing. That's why, as the mission statement says, we're into education and performance. It's like a parallel path that we go. We have the school for education, we have the orchestra for performance, and they both intermingle because the orchestra oftentimes gets involved in educational events of its own, as does the school. Faculty members as well as students are in performance. The faculty have a regular series, they perform regularly. I don't want to say they, meaning everybody, but there's an opportunity for faculty members to sign up and do their recitals if they'd like to, as well as their students.
Why don't we get into that a little bit? That's a reference to the performances that are done at the Camilla Blackman Hall?
Yes. The new addition to our school is the Camilla Blackman Hall, which is it's a lovely space. Seats.
This is an area that's I believe it seats at least 200. It's part of the school itself.
Right.
It's brand new, and they feature different types of concerts there, performed by the faculty and the students themselves. There's one constant concert. It's called Bach's Lunch, as in John Sebastian Bach, every month. And I think that's just the neatest thing.
Yeah, well, it's a great idea. People just get to bring their lunch in a brown paper bag if you want, or in a lunch pail, whatever. Come and sit and listen to the music at tables, and it's a huge success. I mean, it's really wonderful what's happening. So anytime anybody hears the term Bach's Lunch, it's not B-O-X, it's B-A-C-H apostrophe S. Right, and it's a great thing that we have going on, and there was so many other things. You know, we have also a series of chamber music performances that go on at the Kaleidoscope Gallery in Groton. But the Blackman Hall is our real home for chamber performances, smaller scale performances, and it's certainly over 100 people that this hall can seat. But if nobody's ever been in that hall, they should come, and it's not. We're not exclusionary, I'll put it that way. We're very much open to having anybody who wants to come by and see the place and listen to any recital, even if you don't know anything about it, feel free to come into that room and just share the wonderful sounds of music that are going on in that place.
And it's also, in my observation at least, an enormous service to our elderly community. I know when I go to I've been to 2 of the Bach's lunches, and both times there have been well over 100 people there. Well over 100.
Right.
And many of them elderly from Groton and Littleton and Westford and Acton, the Robbins Hill facility, whatever.
Right, exactly, right. We're developing really strong relationships with those, with that demographic, to put it into a business term, and the elderly people just love it. The recitals are always very interesting. It's never anything so. I mean, it's always professional, but it's not so highfalutin a program that you feel like you don't understand it at all. We feel so strongly about that, whether it's a small-scale performance like that, or whether it's our orchestra performances, where we feel that what we provide are intimate experiences where you can feel like we're just almost playing in your own living room kind of a situation. We're casual. I don't want to say we're dressy, but we're casual. You know what I mean? Right. We're just. It's not all about stuffiness. It's not about high art with all capital letters. It's about really enjoying what we know everybody can enjoy, either as a performer or as a listener, wonderful music in a non-confrontational, in a very open and welcoming way.
Now you can get the date for the next Bach lunch on the website, but later on in the broadcast I'm also going to get the date for you.
Great.
Now, let's talk about the orchestra.
Sure.
Just briefly, there's a concert series every year of 6 concerts, 4 classical, 2 pops, and they're performed at the Littleton Performing Arts Center at the Littleton High School. The next one coming up is, I believe, March 10th, 7:30 p.m., spring concert called Audience Choice. April 28th at 7:30 p.m., the season finale. And then the last concert is a pop concert, May 13th, Mother's Day, 3 o'clock. So after dinner, take mom, to that concert.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Do you want to talk about any of those? Or?
Well, sure. I'll go in reverse order, perhaps. The Mother's Day concert is going to be a lot of fun. We decided that it should be an all Gershwin concert and just have a lot of fun with the Gershwin's music. So we have the piano concerto is being done. We've done the Rhapsody in Blue fairly recently, so unfortunately we couldn't program it. Didn't feel comfortable with programming it right again. But the piano concerto that Gershwin wrote a year after the Rhapsody in Blue is along the same lines. lines. It's the same kind of language, and it's definitely Gershwin's music. We'll be having excerpts from his opera Porgy and Bess, and everybody knows those excerpts. You know, everything from Summertime and the Living is Easy. You got it, see there, and various other excerpts from that. And we have a couple of really outstanding singers who are going to be joining us for that, and a couple of other pieces too to just fill out the program. So it should be a lot of fun. This is the first time in my 10 years anyway that we've done an all Gershwin program, so it'll be great. And I might add, we'll also be featuring the winner of last year's concerto contest that we had for students at Indian Hill Music. So we're going to find a way to squeeze that person in. Also, probably won't be doing Gershwin, but squeeze that person in in between all the Gershwin. So it should be a lot of fun. And if nobody's ever been to the auditorium at Littleton High School, it's really quite a nice place. The orchestra sounds good in there. The stage is just about large enough for all of us, and so it's a little tight for us, but it feels good, and the audience feels like it's close enough to the orchestra to be able to really relate to what we're doing. And we're all standing there and smiling, or smiling and while we're playing, and just making everybody feel at home with everything. So then we do also, I should mention the first program you mentioned, which is the next one in early March, is our Audience Choice Concert. What we did last year is we sent out a survey to all of our subscribers and said, if you picked a program, what pieces would you put on it? And we sort of helped. We suggested a list of ideas here and there, that kind of thing, so we could keep the discussion fairly focused, and got back all kinds of wonderful repertoire. So as a matter of fact, the whole season, all of our concerts this year have some bearing on that survey, on the survey results, which was quite interesting. But the top vote getters are what devised this particular program, March 10th. So we're doing Rachmaninoff. Rachmaninoff is a wonderful concerto it's a concerto for piano and orchestra, and Rachmaninoff's style is just so singing, it's so lush, so romantic, it's so, you can just sit back and say, and only if you could put your feet up, it would be something you'd want to do too. But also Beethoven is going to be on it, and Tchaikovsky, and all great pieces like that. And we're doing a brand new piece of contemporary music by an American composer who actually lives out in Western Massachusetts. Because a lot of people suggested or requested that we do some new pieces too, that it shouldn't be always about Mozart, Beethoven, and all the standards. Yeah, right, all the traditional stuff. So we're mixing it up, and this is what the audience is, this is what they asked for, so that's what we're going to give them.
Okay. And can we just talk about the orchestra a little bit?
Sure.
It's approximately 75 strong. And,
yes.
Just really good musicians from the area.
They're all really good musicians. They're all professional. Everybody's paid. It's not an amateur. It's not a community orchestra type situation at all. We have many of our players are involved in very actively in the freelance scene in the greater Boston area. You know, there are so many different artistic organizations that an instrumentalist can be a part of on a part-time basis, because many of the organizations are not really full-time. You have the BSO, let's say, the Boston Symphony, which is definitely full-time, and so those players can't really get out and play anywhere else. But there's so many other institutions where people actually, as freelancers, are able to put together livelihoods. Some of our players play in the Boston Lyric Opera, some play in the Boston Ballet, others play in other orchestras around. You know, there's everything from the orchestras in Portland, Maine, to Manchester, New Hampshire, to Springfield, Mass, to Providence, Rhode Island, quite a few orchestras in the Boston area, and a lot of these people just go farming about, driving around and having very active schedules, playing all these different orchestras. So they're all very professional. They're great musicians. Some have been with us for certainly longer than I've been there for the 10 years. And on the one side, and on the other hand, we have some people occasionally when we can fill in say a position in the violins, I'll get to some of my more talented students at the Boston Conservatory and say, hey, do you want an opportunity to play with us? And some have come in and done that too. And even some have graduated from the school, but are still playing with us as they've rejoined, or I should say joined, the freelance market in the Boston area. So it's a very active scene. You would not believe the hundreds of musicians who are driving around I-95 and 495 and 290 and everywhere else just to get to their next gig. It's really amazing.
Frankly, I would never have thought that it was precisely that way. No.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people don't. You just don't think about it. Well, you have the orchestra, the Indian Hill Orchestra, which plays at Littleton High School. Who would think that some of these guys are also driving into Boston and playing with the big major orchestras there too? But it's true. That's what they're all doing, and having a great time doing it too.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about programs, Bruce.
Sure.
I'll just ask the question very directly and very briefly. How do you put together a program, a concert together? I mean, Of course you have your favorites, but
Right.
you also have reasons for doing certain things.
Well, absolutely. I usually refer to my lists. I keep a lot of lists of repertoire. One list might be my favorites, as you say. Another list, and I don't even need to keep a list of those. That's all up in my head. Another list would be repertoire. Well, one list I definitely keep is I have a cumulative list of repertoire that we've done over the years, and I keep it chronologically, so I can look from a longer perspective at what we've done the last 2 years, the last 3 years, the last 4 years, etc., to see what repertoire maybe I've not touched on in recent years, and then that repertoire then rises to the top for consideration. I'll have a list of pieces that I feel the orchestra needs to do for its own artistic development. There's various repertoire for various reasons. It might be a rhythmic kind of composition, or it might be a style that we've not done in a number of years, and I'll decide that sort of style needs to be done. Let's say Impressionism, just to pick one off the top. We haven't done an Impressionistic piece in, I don't know, maybe 3 years. So it's going to be time to bring out a piece of Impressionism again sometime soon. And the list might include what symphonies. Beethoven wrote 9 symphonies. Well, if we've done numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 over the last 7, 8 years, probably 6, 7, 8, and 9 are going to rise to the top for consideration. So, and then there's as I say, the list of repertoire that I think the players should have as an orchestra. There's also a list of repertoire that I just want to do, not even necessarily my favorites. Maybe there's a different kind of style there that I've not done in a while, and I want to do to keep my feet wet, if you will, in that sort of repertoire. So I'm always juggling and balancing these, and then they get affected by the choice of a guest artist. Many of our concerts, in fact most of our concerts, have a guest artist from outside our area, and a program always has to start with choosing that artist, and then there's the decision as to what piece they should play. And whatever piece they play goes first and onto my puzzle making machine here, and I put that down first, and then I start figuring out what pieces should surround that. And as I'm trying to figure out the pieces that surround that solo piece, then I'm thinking about the other concerts throughout the year, trying to always maintain a balance. Because ultimately, when we get down to the concert itself, any one of those concerts, I'm going to put myself in your shoes as a listener, thinking that, okay, if we start with this piece, then what's the next thing we're going to have to do? Maybe I want to build your anticipation up through the whole course of the evening, or maybe I want to sock it to you right at the beginning of the concert, and then make you really relax for a while, and then maybe send you out with an uplift at the end. Or there's any number of different ways that one can establish what I call the flow of a concert, and I do that only within 2 pieces, sometimes 3, sometimes 4 pieces on a program, basically. And so there's not a lot of choice. It's not like I can do a whole bunch of 3 or 4 or 5 minute pieces, but some which last 40 minutes and some which last 5 minutes. And so I'm always thinking about flow and balance and what it is that you might expect as a listener sitting in the auditorium. what surprises might I be able to throw at you? And so at one time I'll be caressing, I'll be wanting to really please and entertain you, just letting you relax. But maybe the next piece I choose will be something to give you a little prod. Say, okay, listen to this one now, and then I might round it all off at the end of the day, the end of the concert, with another piece that, oh yes, this is my favorite sort of stuff.
Maybe not a fair question. What might be a handful of your favorites?
Well, there's so many of them. Actually, I'm not sure I have a handful, but I basically lean towards, as favorites, pieces that have drama in them, musical drama, pieces that are like Beethoven, for instance. Beethoven is a very dramatic composer. There's always a sense of the music which he grabs a hold of you, and it grabs a hold of your attention to the point where you can't really pull yourself away from it. If you do, you've pulled yourself away from the whole musical experience. But Beethoven is a compelling storyteller when it comes to writing music, and it's that kind of storytelling that I really relate to. There's also some late romantic music, music of Gustav Mahler, for instance, who wrote, generally speaking, these long symphonies which last basically about an hour, and each one of his 9 symphonies are, speaking of flow, symphonies which lift you up and then beat you down and then lift you up and then calm out the skies, and then prod you a little bit, and then maybe make you laugh and giggle, and then slap you in the face with another blast of sound. I mean, it's truly amazingly powerful. The music that I like least will be the music that doesn't have a lot of that drama. There's a sort of the elevator music kind of thing,
okay,
where it just kind of exists by itself. Having said that, I really love, I mentioned it earlier, Impressionism. And Impressionistic music has, I think because my favorite instrument is the orchestra. I don't have a specific instrument that I say is my favorite, but I love all the colors, the musical colors that an orchestra can make, the combination of woodwinds and brass and percussion and strings, which exist in myriad an infinite number of combinations that you take an impressionistic composer, and he's able to use all those colors of instruments and just make it shimmer and sparkle, just like you would be looking at an impressionistic painting. And if it's pointillism we're talking about, you'll hear like a point of an oboe sound, or a point of a string sound, or a point of this or that, and sparkles and combinations, and I just really find that fascinating. So for me, the favorite music is drama and color.
Okay. We're going to change gears here just for a second. Bruce and I have a quiz for you. Where were you the night of February 3rd, 2002? You have 5 seconds. And
February 3rd.
You really should know the answer to this question. Okay, New Orleans, Adam Vinatieri, time running out, 48-yard field goal. You were there.
I was there, yep. Not on the field.
No.
But I was there. You might remember that Adam Vinatieri was down there, definitely. The whole Patriots gang was down there. And Robert Kraft had arranged for the Boston Pops to go play for the halftime of that Super Bowl. And while the Pops and all the musicians and the conductor were all there in the middle of the field playing, I was in the control truck, or the camera controls, which was an unbelievable place. I mean, just one whole side of the long side of a semi-trailer, which was their control room, filled, the one long side was filled with monitors, the video monitors. I mean, there must have been, I don't know, 30, 40 of them, and there's a row of people sitting right there looking at them, especially with the director. I found it interesting. The director didn't do anything in the way of pushing buttons or anything like that. He just issued commands and would point at this screen, and then the people on his sides were the ones who pushed the right buttons to make the cameras come up. But he had his headset on, always talking with all the cameramen out in the field, and pushing buttons. But this control person who pushed no buttons was wearing gloves. I found it very interesting, but it's sort of like driving gloves. I think that's the way he felt it. It gave him the power in his hands. So anyway, my job
Now,
there,
did you know what you were getting into before you started this
No,
day?
not really. No. I mean, I knew I was going as a cover conductor for Keith Lockhart, just in case something would have happened to Keith, that I would have been there to conduct. But since he was unfortunately healthy, the job they gave me was to sit in the sound truck. And then what I did was I helped the director who didn't know anything about orchestras, and he's got all these cameras pointed at the orchestra, and I was telling him, okay, go to the timpani, and then I'd have to tell him where the timpani are in the orchestra, or go to the oboe player, there's the first trumpet player, and it was at a very fast pace. I mean, I cannot believe the energy that this person spent doing that. But it was great, and then suddenly after, what, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it was, we were done.
Well, you were in the control room for more than that, though. I mean,
Well, it was for the show, yeah, for however long the show itself went. But halftime is not all that. Not all that.
did you have a good time
long.
down there, though, too?
I had a great time. Yeah. Should I give you my confession now?
Yeah.
I am so embarrassed to admit this now in retrospect, but here we were.
Well, it's 5 years later. So.
5 years, absolutely. So please bear with me and please understand that I would not do this now if the opportunity came up again. But the Patriots organization was really fabulous, and they arranged for seats for the entire Boston Pops Orchestra for the whole game, and I opted out of that opportunity to watch the game. And to this day, I regret having made that decision, except that some friends of mine in the Boston Pops Orchestra and I decided that we would go into the French Quarter in New Orleans and have ourselves a great dinner without having to stand in line or anything. There was hardly anybody. I know. And so we actually went to a great restaurant and had a wonderful dinner. And there was a TV close by in the restaurant, but it was such an astounding, wonderful game. Ever since the game was over and we won it, I've regretted the fact that I did that, because I could go to the French Quarter and have dinner there anytime I wanted to.
Well, as you said, though, there was a TV monitor there, and you had a great dinner and probably a great bottle of wine to go along with it.
Well, who could? Yes,
it's a family show, but we can say that.
Absolutely right.
Okay, how did you do on that one? You probably didn't get it. So here's the second question. April 11th, 2005.
We should be able to remember.
Fenway Park, ring ceremony?
Yes, absolutely.
You were there too?
I was there, standing right there in the middle of the field. I loved it. I was actually conducting members of the Boston Symphony. They had asked for some music for the national anthem and for as they were calling the players out, the roster, to accept their rings and all that sort of stuff. And when they dropped the banner off the Green Monster, we were playing the music there, right there in the middle of the field. It was the first time I'd ever set foot in Fenway Park, and for that first time to be right there, oh God, that was an unbelievable.
And then knowing how important it was to everyone.
Oh yeah.
First time since Mark, was it 1918? I think that's
something like that.
Yeah.
Yes, right. Yeah, I mean, so wonderful, and the crowd was, of course, so excited. It was a beautiful day. It was just, and to be standing there in the middle of the field and have, that's when the Yankees were playing.
The Yankees were there.
So the Yankees were there on the field, and the Red Sox were there on the field, and we were staring at them all, and Johnny Pesky and all the rest of them were out there on the field. Oh God, it was great. It was a wonderful experience.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Just like mine has been with yours here today.
Oh, thank you.
And we are in touch often with Evan Thea, and all of us here at Channel 8 are also trying to contribute as much as we can to get the word out and to let everyone know how great an organization you have there.
We sure appreciate that.
And thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob. It's been a real pleasure.
For Bruce and myself, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.